The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Diego Castro, bringing you the biggest headlines from around the world. Russia is accusing Ukraine of attacking the Kremlin with drones overnight in an attempt to kill their president Vladimir Putin. Reuters describes this as the most serious allegation that Moscow has leveled at Kyiv in more than 14 months of war. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky promptly denied any Ukrainian involvement, saying they fight on their own territory and do not attack Putin or Moscow. A senior Ukrainian presidential official said the incident actually suggests that Moscow is preparing a major, quote, terrorist provocation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington has not been able to validate the reported attack.
I would take anything coming out of the Kremlin with a very large shaker of salt. So let's see. We'll see what the facts are. And it's really hard to comment or speculate on this without really knowing what the facts are. We leave it to Ukraine to decide how it's going to defend itself and how it's going to try to get back the territory that's been seized from it illegally by Russia over the past 14 months.
One person was killed while 3 others were hospitalized in a shooting at a medical building in Atlanta where the suspect remains at large. In a tweet, Atlanta authorities say they responded to an active shooter past noon. Local police also shared photographs of the suspect, who had a mask over his face and nose and was wearing a sweatshirt and a brown backpack. According to police reports, the suspect carjacked a vehicle to flee as law enforcement arrived at the scene. The mayor of Atlanta cautioned the public to keep an eye out for the suspect.
I am also making sure that you know that we are dealing with someone that is armed and dangerous. This is a deadly situation. This individual has just indeed conducted an act that we want to make sure that you know that if you see him, do not approach, that you are to call 911.
Flooding and landslides triggered by heavy rain have killed at least 129 people in Rwanda. Rwanda President Paul Kagame said his government is now providing temporary relocations. Over in Uganda, 6 people have died, with excavations now underway to retrieve the bodies. Rwanda and Uganda have been experiencing heavy and sustained rains since late last March. Experts in Rwanda are still forecasting above average rainfall in May for the East African nation. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now World. I'm Diego Castro. Police officers in London gear up for the coronation of King Charles III. Around 29,000 uniformed personnel are deployed in the UK capital across 7 days. Aside from safety of guests, they also aim to control demonstrations by anti-monarchists. The police said they have an extremely low tolerance for anyone who comes to disrupt the event. King Charles III will be crowned in a historic ceremony at Westminster Abbey on Saturday.
We have an extremely low tolerance for anything or anyone who comes to disrupt this event. And what they will find is a very swift and very quick action from us to make sure that everyone can carry on celebrating without interference or interruption of any such thing or any such person.
For the first time, scientists have caught a star in the act of swallowing a planet, not just a nibble or a bite, but one big gulp. Astronomers reported their observations of what appears to be a gas giant around the size of Jupiter or bigger being eaten by its star. The sun-like star had been puffing up with old age for eons and finally got so big that it engulfed the close orbiting planet. It's a preview of what will happen to Earth when our sun morphs into a red giant. The good news is it won't happen for 5 billion years. With inequality pushing politics in Latin America further left, the region's wealthy are now looking overseas for investments. But while other nations enjoy the new stream of investments, the capital flight is seen to take a toll on Latin American economies. The rest of the details and in this Bloomberg Quick Take.
Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. Since 2018, every major country in Latin America has shifted to the left. This regional trend towards socialism, often called a pink tide, is driven by widening inequality and is leading to more capital flying out of the region. Across Latin America, wealthy and increasingly middle-class investors are looking for a plan B in case of more economic and political upheaval. Initial data from the Institute of International Finance shows a capital outflow of $137 billion from the 5 largest economies in the region last year. That's 41% higher than the 2021 figure and the most since 2010. Although no one tracks where the money is going, popular destinations include the Dominican Republic, Panama, Spain, and the US. Mexican investors have spent more than $774 million on Spanish real estate and construction since 2020, and Colombians have bought as many as 500 Panamanian properties in just the past few months. But no place has felt the impact more than Miami. The city's history and development are so interwoven with its neighbors to the south that it's often referred to as the capital of Latin America. Colombians alone bought 1,222 properties in the Miami area last year, marking a 30% increase from the previous year. Meanwhile, about 40% of Chile's nearly 200 family offices have a foothold in the U.S., primarily in South Florida. Each is investing $30 to $40 million a year stateside, mostly in real estate. But while places like Miami might be reaping the benefits of this increasing investment, capital flight poses important challenges for Latin American economies.
On the one hand, as money flows out of these countries, their currencies weaken, which means more inflation pressures. That, of course, means further hardship for the population, which is already suffering the consequences of a jump in consumer prices. And capital flight can also mean less investment. That money that could have been used to expand a factory, for example, or buy real estate in these countries is instead leaving. Less investment over time has huge consequences on the economic growth potential for these economies.
And those are the top world headlines of the hour. Join us again at 9 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. Coming right up is Agenda at 8 a.m. I'm Diego Castro. We are One News, all sides, all the time.